We need to talk about what happened in Rome last night because I genuinely cannot remember the last time a rain delay felt this dramatic. Jannik Sinner and Daniil Medvedev were deep into a third set that had everything: momentum swings, physical exhaustion, a crowd absolutely losing their minds, and then, just like that, the skies opened up and the whole thing froze. And now we're sitting here on Saturday, May 16th, with one of the most tantalizing resume points in recent memory just hours away. Sinner leads 2 sets to 1, 4 games to 2 in the decider, and Medvedev is literally on game point on his own serve. I mean, how is that even possible? How does a tennis match get suspended at that exact moment? So, in this video, I want to break down exactly what's at stake when they walk back out onto that Foro Italico clay this afternoon. I want to talk about the revised schedule, the Rome weather situation, because yes, there's still a real threat of more rain. And most importantly, I want to give you my honest read on who has the psychological and physical edge when this match picks back up. Because those two things, the mind and the body, are going to decide this far more than any tactical adjustment. Let's start with where we are. Sinner took that first set in 33 minutes. 33 minutes. That is a statement. That is Sinner walking out on home soil in front of a crowd that worships him, playing with the kind of relaxed aggression that makes him look almost robotic in the best possible way. His forehand down the line was finding corners. His first serve percentage was high, and frankly, Medvedev looked like a man who hadn't quite arrived at the party yet. But then the second set happened. Here's what I noticed in that second set that I think is going to matter enormously when they resume. Medvedev did something very specific. He started elongating the rallies. He wasn't going for winners, he was pulling Sinner into these grinding 8, 9, 10 shot exchanges from the baseline. And at some point, the camera caught Sinner leaning on his racket between points, visibly catching his breath. Now, Sinner has had some well documented physical situations this season, and I'm not going to speculate on anything medical here. But what I will say is that Medvedev read the moment perfectly. He identified that Sinner's engine was running a little hot, and he decided to turn the match into an endurance test rather than a skill contest. That's elite IQ. That's why Medvedev, at his best, is one of the most difficult opponents on the planet to put away. So Medvedev takes the second set 7-5, and by that point, you could feel the crowd getting just slightly nervous. Not panicked, but nervous. Because everyone in that stadium, everyone watching on television knows that when Daniil Medvedev gets momentum, he does not give it back cheaply. The problem for Medvedev, though, is that Sinner responded in exactly the way a champion responds. He didn't spiral, he didn't get tight, he broke serve early in the third and moved to 4-2. And that is when the rain came. Now, here's my honest take on the rain delay psychology, because this is something I find genuinely fascinating. Conventional wisdom says a rain delay helps the player who is trailing or struggling, because it breaks momentum and gives them a chance to reset. By that logic, you'd say this helps Medvedev, who was staring down a 4-2 deficit in the deciding set. And there's truth to that. Medvedev will get time to sit with his coaching team, rethink his tactical approach, and walk back out without the weight of consecutive lost games pressing on him. But here's where I push back on that conventional read. Sinner is the one with something historic on the line. He came into this tournament riding a 32 match winning streak in ATP Masters 1000 events. He is chasing a career golden Masters, winning every single Masters 1000 title at least once. Rome is the one that's missing from his collection, his home tournament. And there is a version of Jannik Sinner that absolutely locks in on pressure situations rather than wilting under them. We have seen it on the biggest stages in the sport. The man has 2 Grand Slam titles. He knows how to finish. I also want to touch on the physical dimension here because the overnight rest actually matters. Whatever energy Sinner was visibly burning in that second set, the gasping, the leaning on the racket, he now has a full night plus a morning to recover. He has had time to refuel, to stretch, to mentally compartmentalize. When he walks back out there at 3 p.m. local time, which is 1 p.m. GMT and 6:30 p.m. IST for our viewers in India, he is going to be refreshed. And Sinner refreshed, leading 4-2 in a deciding set with the crowd behind him. That is a terrifying proposition for the opposition. Now let's talk weather, because this is genuinely still a factor. Rome is currently under a yellow alert for rain and thunderstorms. At the time I'm recording this, it is actually raining in the city. Conditions are forecast to improve through the afternoon, but there is still a 50 to 60% chance of rain during the match window. Here's the saving grace. We are only talking about 2 to 3 games at most before Sinner could potentially close this out. If he holds serve and then breaks or consolidates, this match could be over in 15 minutes. So even if the weather window is tight, there's a real chance they get it done before any serious precipitation arrives. That said, if the rain comes back mid match, we could be looking at yet another suspension. And that would be a nightmare logistically. Because the women's final between Coco Gauff and Elina Svitolina is locked in for 5 p.m. local time. Tournament organizers have built a 2-hour buffer between the men's semi-final resumption and the women's final, and that buffer might end up being absolutely crucial. And speaking of the final, let's not lose sight of what's waiting at the other end of this. Casper Ruud is already through. He dismantled Luciano Darderi 6-1, 6-1 yesterday, and he is rested, he is fresh, and he is playing some of the most consistent clay court tennis of his career right now. If Sinner gets through this afternoon, he walks into Sunday's final against a man who has had 48 hours of rest. That's not nothing. That's a real factor. And it makes how Sinner manages his physical output in the next hour or two of play critically important. My read on how this ends? I think Sinner closes it out. I think he comes out with the same controlled aggression he showed at the start of the third set, holds his serve comfortably, and finds a way to either break Medvedev or win the tiebreak if it comes to that. Medvedev is dangerous, always. But being down 4-2 in a deciding set after an overnight suspension against the world number one on his home clay, with a crowd that is going to be absolutely deafening in support of the Italian, that is an enormous mountain to climb. But I've been wrong about Medvedev before, and that's honestly what makes this so compelling. This isn't over. This is a live match, suspended at the worst possible moment for the man trailing. And when they walk back out onto the clay of the Foro Italico this afternoon, we are going to get the kind of tennis that reminds you exactly why you fell in love with this sport in the first place. I'll be watching, and I really hope you will be too. If you want to stay completely up to date on everything Italian Open, the final result, the Sunday final breakdown, and the full ATP home clay with a crowd that is going to be absolutely deafening in support of the Italian, that is an enormous mountain to climb. But I've been wrong about Medvedev before, and that's honestly what makes this so compelling. This isn't over. This is a live match, suspended at the worst